Warning: this stream is rated for mature audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Oh, well, good evening. Hello, how you doing? Welcome. This is the Sleight of Game Shatterproof Theater. My name is Scotty, also known as EBC. This is actually, I think, the last show that we will be doing with our current sponsor, Sleight of Game. He requests you go check out shatterproof.org. And if you are so inclined, maybe make a small donation. Shatterproof.org is an organization devoted to helping people get rid of their addiction to drugs, and it is a topic that is near and dear to Slight's heart, and he would appreciate you giving that at least a little bit of attention. Hello, hero. How you doing? I'm good. I'm good. Um, I don't know where you are, but here in the Cleveland, Ohio area, it has been pouring cats and dogs all day long. And we are supposed to have a switch tonight, I believe, over to some snow, and we're gonna have wintry mix today, tomorrow, and probably for the rest of our lives. Hello, Joel. How you doing?
I'm Joel.
You're Joel?
Yeah.
Imagine that. You've already got the snow. Well, Idaho is like that. I would expect snow there at this time of year, and what you're doing. What's happening? Same old, same old. You look green.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. So I hope you're well, hero, and anybody else that's watching it, lurking in the background, and potentially people that will be watching this in the future. So, if you've not seen this show before, I actually only did one episode, and it was back in July. And the the episode back in July was on freedom and liberty because it was around Independence Day, so I wanted to have that general topic then. And this show is basically just me ranting for probably 90 minutes or so on the subject that I have chosen. But all of these are essentially the same, and that is, I believe there's questions that people should consider and answer for themselves before they take stances on major political issues. So I want to start with something that happened to me about 6 months ago. And it's a little bit odd for me. I was presented with a scenario in which I was just kind of flabbergasted, and I didn't know what to make of it. And so I responded the same way that I typically respond. And This was a couple of people that had said things to me that made me essentially feel like a piece of shit, and in my opinion, were also totally unfounded. Now, normally I don't bother with any of that. I just ignore people that are doing that. But these were people that were supposedly closer to me in a kind of certain respect. So the thing that really bothered me about it was that as much as I try to be open minded, as much as I try to be, in this case specifically, an ally for people that choose to do something that isn't necessarily considered normal, or things that people decide to do that are their own personal choices and have nothing to do with me, as much as I try to keep an open mind with that, I was accused basically of not being open minded, of making statements that supposedly proved that I was a bigot. And as much as I didn't want to let that bother me, it did. And I kind of shut down for a good couple of weeks. I didn't do, or if I did any Twitch or Conflux shows, it was very little. And I'm not happy how I handled it either. That I let it affect me that much. And essentially, me and those two people parted ways, and um, I decided that was best because I don't like toxic people. I don't like people in my life that have a negative impact on me, and I have removed those types of people many times before. So, that being said, what happened to me 6 months ago was I had people that I confronted about statements they were making to me and about me because I felt that I was being abused. And if the roles were reversed, and this is the reason why I'm bringing all of this up tonight, if the roles were reversed, I certainly would not have done that to them. And in fact, so much so that I live my life to the best of my ability according to the principle of not telling people how to live their lives. Even if I feel they are damaging themselves, even if I feel they are um, being stupid, just plain out stupid, or whatever the case may be, I can't tell people how to live their lives because it goes against a principle that I hold dear, which is libertarianism. Now, that was 6 months ago. 20 years ago, there was somebody that I knew. His name was Mark. And I knew him through my school. Um, he was part of like a youth organization that was there. And I kept contact with him. He was one of the few people I kept contact with after high school. And I remember getting involved in politics pretty heavily and learning stuff that I never had been exposed to before. And saying to myself, boy, it really would have been helpful if I had been taught this in school. And it was things about the founding of the country and history. It was things about the Constitution and the way that our government is set up and the way it differs from other countries. I mean, the basic social studies and civics classes that we had in uh, school were didn't even compare to the stuff that I learned afterwards. And I remember going to Mark and wanting to share this information with him and saying, this is important to me. I think it might be important to you too. Would you mind if I shared it with you? And I probably at the time, especially because I was much younger, came on a little bit strong. But it certainly wasn't as if I was telling him he had to listen to what I was saying. And I remember it ending very badly with Mark, because not very badly, but I mean, just it didn't end well. And that was because the last thing he said to me was, "There is nothing that you know that I do not know." And I thought to myself, boy, as much as I wanted to retort, respond to that, I decided not to, and it just struck me as so odd that somebody would make a statement like that. Every single person on this earth knows things that other people do not know. So for him to make that blanket statement that there was nothing that I knew that he didn't, not only was patently false, but it also spoke of what Mark truly felt about me and other people, and that he was, essentially telling me that I could have the greatest information in the world, but it wouldn't matter because I was not in a position to teach him or share information like that. He just wasn't interested. And that's another relationship that I decided wasn't going to work for me. So you're saying, let me ask this: in not telling people how to live their life, do you feel it's okay to point out flaws or things you don't like to others, or do you stray from that as well? I will point out flaws, although the the older I get, the less I want to do that, because generally people do not respond well to that. And it's been very few times in my life that I'm trying to give people constructive criticism and they have responded well to it. And I also know that, like my brother, for instance, I've probably talked his ear off and sent it through the mail around the world just to be glued back on, and I'm still talking to him and he's annoyed the fuck by me because I'm trying to give him life advice, because I'm 7 years older than him, and there are things that I've gone through, and I might be able to prevent him from going through the school of hard knocks. And he hasn't always responded positively to that. For the most part, he has, though. I got to give him credit there.
I listen.
You listen. But, yeah. So, mostly, when it comes to things like that, like if I see somebody doing something stupid, I just kind of walk away now. Unless they are important to me. Like, if I consider them a good friend, yeah, I'm definitely going to try to save them from themselves. And that also has ended relationships. They ended the relationship with me, not the other way around. So, yes, it is a fine line. I can see it from both ways. I try not to interfere with other people's lives to the best of my ability, but that doesn't always happen either. But 100%, I never tell people, you must do this, you have to do this. I don't shove my line of thinking into other people's faces and tell them this is how they must live their life. I have often found myself at times reducing myself to a level where I'm almost begging and pleading for them to listen to me and do as I am suggesting, because I feel that they are going to harm themselves or others if they don't. And that doesn't always work either. But again, that's kind of related to, how important a person is to me, and I'm trying to maybe make a difference in their life. And I don't have all the information either, but um, we'll get to that in the second part, the OCD the kind of perspective it gives me in my life. But before we go any further, I want to play this video. You might be familiar with Penn Jillette from the magic show act Penn and Teller. And Penn Jillette has put together a video. It's about 18 minutes long that is probably one of the best descriptions of libertarianism that I have ever heard. And in that, what he does is he lays out very well this concept of how that kind of impact deals with other people's lives, and even why libertarians hold this principle. So this is not necessarily a political thing, although it can be political, but it has a lot more to do with relationships and how people interact. So here's Penn Jillette on what libertarianism means to him.
Let me lay on you what libertarianism is to me. Once again, I'm speaking for myself, which is about as libertarian as you can get. I do not believe I know what's best for other people. I also don't believe that other people know what's best for other people. I can barely make decisions for myself. I do my best to make decisions for my family. Should my 10-year-old son take music lessons? That's a hard question for our family. Do you want to push him into it or wait until he really wants it? Those are hard decisions. I have trouble making those for my family. So making the decision of what someone else's job and health care should be like, who's in another part of the country who I've never met, is not something I'm qualified or desirous to do. That's libertarianism. Libertarianism is taking a right on money and your first left on sex and looking for utopia straight ahead. To me, the way I was brought up, Western Massachusetts, kind of a New England philosophy, we believed in responsibility and keeping your nose out of other people's business. We believed in live and let live, I think to a fault. My mom and dad were older parents too. My mom was 45 when I was born. So I was raised by another generation. You see, my mom would be whatever, 120 now or 115 now. Whole other generation. My mom was born, now you're going to see that my math is wrong. My mom was born in 1909. She's dead now. So it's a whole different generation. And my mom's feeling about absolutely everything was who cares. Her whole feeling on the gay rights movement was who cares who they want to get together with? Doesn't matter to me. Her whole feeling on drugs. I have never had a sip of alcohol or any recreational drug in my life. That was true for my mother, true for my father, true for my sister. I don't know how many generations it goes back, but never. And yet, my mom always thought that, sure, any drug should be legal. If you're living in a free country, do whatever you want. Take responsibility for it. When you tell people about libertarianism, you just tell them, we think you should take as little from other people by force as possible, and you should be able to do whatever you think is right. Now, that's a pretty heavy thing I'm saying, because I'm saying that if there's an 18-year-old girl who is the greatest math whiz that we have in this country, let's say she's the smartest person at math we have anywhere, and let's say we give her a full scholarship to go to whatever school she wants to go to, Stanford, MIT, wherever she wants to go. And she decides she wants to work at McDonald's and get pregnant at the age of 19. That's her decision. Jim Morrison, did he have a worse life because he did an awful lot of drugs and died at 28? I don't know. I've already lived a lot longer than Jim Morrison, but were his choices worse than mine? I don't know. I know I would not have liked to have lived like Jim Morrison, although I'd like to look that good in leather pants. But Kurt Cobain, did I want to live like that? No, not even slightly. Prince, I don't want to live like that. But they probably don't want to live like me either. Libertarianism is the strongest sense of please do what you want, try not to hurt me. Our government has a monopoly on force. Have a monopoly on force. The government is the only organization that is supposed to be able to use force. The government is supposed to be a government of us. Which means, in my thinking, my morality, the government should only use force for things I'm willing to use force for. The governments are the only ones that are allowed to use guns to hurt another person or threaten another person legally. So the question becomes, what would I use a gun to do? Now, I'm a coward, and I have no skills with guns or with violence. I've never hit a person in anger in my life. I've been hit, I never hit back. So this is hypothetical. But if I were not a coward, would I use a gun to stop someone from being killed? Yes. Would I use a gun to stop someone from being raped? Yes. Would I use a gun to build a library? Would I take money from someone to build a library? Well, I'd certainly give my money. I'd certainly work. I'd certainly beg you for money to build a library. Libraries really matter to me. I was born in '55. I'm from a small town. Without a library, I would have known nothing. I had to ride my bike to the library to learn about Lenny Bruce, Franz Kafka. I got Stravinsky records in the library. It meant everything to me. Libraries matter, but that's the libertarian question. Now, taking care of people. Would you use a gun to take care of others? That's a hard one. Because taxation is using violence. Now, people try to say taxation is voluntary. It's not. If you don't pay your taxes, eventually, somewhere down the line, someone with a gun will show up. They just will. At some point, if you don't do that. What do we do with our taxes? Will we use a gun to defend our country? Yeah, I guess we got it, right? But we use a gun for everything we use for taxes. So when I see the government doing something, I ask myself, would I use a gun to do that? Now, all of that being said, that is the high level, the theoretical part of libertarianism to me. In a nuts and bolt level, it becomes much, much simpler. And this is one of the cases where the reality is simpler than the theory. When someone is worried about libertarianism, they worry about what happens to public schools, what happens to welfare, what happens to roads. Those are the first three questions they ask. And those are the hardest questions. I will give you public schools. I will give you welfare. I will give you infrastructure. I will not give you the government using a gun to take money from poor people and giving it to rich people. The biggest issue in libertarianism is stopping corporate welfare. What we give in welfare to the poor, what we give in government money to the roads, what we give in government money to the schools is nothing compared to the money we give to rich people. The best way to stop crony capitalism, the best way to stop graft, the best way to stop all sorts of bad stuff in government is to make government small enough. The way you stop corruption is make it small enough that corruption doesn't pay. Give the government little enough that there's not a lot to steal from them. The government is buoying up the rich corporations. The rich corporations love the government. They game the system in a way an individual never can. Any big corporation has a team of the best lawyers that figure out how they can not pay taxes. No middle class person has that. They have regulations set to keep other people out of the business, right? Even the manicure shops, they want to license and register everything so that other people can't get in. It's limiting. If you had a true free market, you would not have the big mega corporations. Libertarianism is not about rich white people getting a lot of money for corporations and leaving everybody else to whistle. Libertarianism is, let's not use the government to take money from poor people and middle class people and give it to rich people, because really, that's all that's ever happened. That's all that's ever happened. In our present climate, we have somebody running for president who we know for a fact lied a lot less than other people. We know for a fact she lied. And we know for a fact that she is an insider and that knows the way to play all the games. We also know that she knows what's better for other people, and we know that she says and claims and brags that she will do a lot of killing of people overseas. We also know that she is essentially, even after I've called her a liar, she's essentially a good, honest person. She essentially has a good heart. She also has a 65% disapproval rating or higher. That's Hillary Clinton. There were two things that I always believed about modern politics. One was that everyone who would ever run for a major office was smarter than me. And the second thing was there was no one worse than Hillary Clinton. Both of those things have been disproven by Donald Trump. Donald Trump, all the good qualities I mentioned about Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump does not share. He's not skilled. He does not have, as far as I can tell, any compassion. And he does not have very much knowledge. He does have a weird kind of charisma that I cannot understand myself. It doesn't seem to work on me. But certainly it's demonstrative that he has charisma that works for some people. And he's willing to give easy answers. And being willing to give easy answers, which in his case aren't answers, they're just, I will fix it. We got this problem, I'll fix it. Well, no, you don't get to say that. You have to demonstrate how you're doing it. But both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump are very interested in getting a lot of power for themselves. I believe Hillary Clinton wants that power because she thinks she knows what's best for other people. Let's refer back to me saying, I don't know what's best for other people. I also don't think she does either, but she believes that. And I believe her heart's in the right place. I don't think Donald Trump knows there are other people to be concerned about. I don't think he even knows that. You got those two, and neither one of them, this is not fair to Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump is giving no theoretical policy ideas for how government should run. Hillary Clinton is not giving enough for my taste. Here's the debate I want to see. Not even a debate, conversation, public conversation, in front of as much of America as wants to watch it. Bernie Sanders, Gary Johnson, both paragons, both virtuous, both honest, both smart, both concerned about other people, both with experience in government. And I want to hear Bernie Sanders say, you know, a lot of people in this country have trouble taking care of themselves. We need a strong infrastructure for business to thrive. We need to protect our country, to protect the people around us. We need a big, strong government with a good, solid safety net that can take care of people and treat them with compassion and make better choices than some individuals will make. We need a government where more qualified people can take care of those that aren't, and where we can keep corporations at bay, and where we can keep some money out of politics. That's what we need. And here are some examples of how we can get there from where we are. Here are the checks and balances we want to put in place on corporations. Here's what we want to do with campaign finance. Here's what we want to do with schools. Here's some of my ideas. But I want Gary Johnson to say, all those things are problems. But I think that maybe a little more freedom, as opposed to a little more control from the government, might give us a lot of that. I want individuals to have a little more money in their pockets and use that for charity and use that for building. And I think instead of putting up tariffs to keep foreign businesses out, we can actually make America more competitive, less taxes, and let them have more power that way and be more successful. There'll be more money all over the place. We can take care of people. I think that'll work pretty well. And while we're at it, we'll stop the corporations by not having a big government that flows money to them. And then Bernie Sanders says back, that sounds really good, Gary. It really does. But there are some people who just plain are going to be left out. They're not going to make it. They're just not going to make it in your dog-eat-dog free market economy. You're just going to be willing to throw them away? And then Gary says, maybe a subsistence amount of money for everybody. Maybe just get paid. Just give them that money. Because compared to what we're paying for food stamps and all of that stuff, just writing them a check is much easier. So maybe we can do that. And Bernie says, what you're saying about keeping businesses over here kind of makes sense. Gary, maybe we can do a few less tariffs and a little lower taxes to help our corporations, and maybe that'll help a little. Then they go back and forth. And they come up with an impasse where they don't agree. And then the American people say, let's try it Bernie's way for a while. Let's give it 4 years of Bernie. Because it seems like he's got some ideas. Let's go 4 years with Bernie. Gary, you're a good guy. You thought about this really hard, and you made a really good case, and we know you're a good guy. We like you. We trust you. But we're going with Bernie now. And we try that for a while. And as Bernie's doing this, there's other people in the government that go, what about this? And he pulls back on this, and he adjusts, and he does that. And then he comes, 4 years go by, and the country goes, let's hear that debate again. Maybe it's someone else in place, but whatever. They do the debate again, and they go, we tried. We don't really feel your Bern. Now feel my Johnson. We'll have Gary Johnson take over for 4 years, see how that goes. And you go back and forth. And you have a discussion of what we want to do as a country between two good, honest, hard-thinking human beings. And please, let's get one of them to be a woman by the next time we do this, please. And let's get someone to be of color, please. Let's just do that. We've got plenty of people on both sides that aren't just white guys. But for right now, my example, Bernie and Gary, and we go back and forth like that. Why aren't we doing that? Why do we to have two people that all they agree on is that they should have power? Two psychotic, power-hungry, hated, unpleasant people clawing and scratching to take power over other people's lives. Why not two people who are actually having discussion about what direction our country should go in? And by the way, we're never going to go all the way Bernie. We're never going to go all the way Gary. But that's the discussion we have, and let that go. So that is what I think about modern politics, and that's what I think about libertarianism. Yeah, maybe someday in the future we should go to anarcho-capitalism. Maybe someday in the future we should go to full-out socialism. But for right now, can we just do what every motherfucking American believes, which is stop giving so much money to the corporations, let the people have more control, let them smoke dope, let them put what they want into their bodies, let them have sex with whoever they want as long as there's consent, and let them do that in every state, let them love who they want and enjoy life the way they want. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Is that a nut position?
All right. So what Penn was describing there is, you probably noticed that he was talking about the race between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump because that was recorded 6 years ago in 2016. So part of that obviously wasn't going to be relevant. In a broader sense, he was saying, instead of just going through the motions that we have been with every United States general election for many years, where you've got a Republican and you've got a Democrat, and they're both awful. Can we try something else? Can we give something else some attention? Okay. Can we not be stuck in this stupid false dichotomy where all we do is vote for one or the other, the lesser of two evils? Can we actually sit down and discuss the ideas that people have, and actually test them and see if they have merit, if they're going to make this country or the world a better place? And if they don't, okay, then let's throw those ideas out. So in one way, that part of the video wasn't really relevant, because one, that was a race that was 6 years ago, even though it's the same damn race back in 2020, and it's going to be the same damn race in 2024 and 2028, and for as long as I can see, because people are stuck in this loop. But the broader theme was Penn Jillette as a person who believes that he does not know what is best for other people, doesn't want to vote for a person who thinks they know what is best for other people. He wants to find a political candidate who maybe puts forth some ideas, some policy concepts, some, actual hard stances on where that person stands, not being wishy-washy, not paying lip service to that, this or that, to get people's votes, which incidentally is something that George Washington mentioned 200 years ago, is that you really need to have somebody who does not want to be president running for president, because that reluctance is what is going to stop the people that are ambitious, and the people that are, as Penn Jillette said, constantly clawing for more and more power. Those are not the people that we want to be lifting to the top. But more importantly, he was talking about that libertarian concept that I do not know what is best for you. I do not know what is best for other people. I only know what is best for me, because I am the only person that I should be able to influence with my decisions. I shouldn't be able to force other people to live the life that I want them to live simply because I think it's best, even in the pursuit of utopia. So what I see in politics, to kind of build on what Penn Jillette said there, is a whole bunch of people on all sides of the aisle. Some of them standing right in the middle of the aisle, some of them under the floor, some of them are 3,000 miles away from the aisle, but they all have one thing in common. They see all of the problems that we face, and they go, I know how to fix it. I've got all the solutions, or maybe I don't even have all the solutions, but I damn sure as hell am going to be better than this person over there. And in the pursuit of obtaining office, they often put forth these concepts on how to build utopia. How are we going to save the country, fix all the problems, do this, do that, and then finally, once we fix everything, we're going to have utopia. And people buy it. And a lot of people just go, yeah, he's got a point. Maybe I'll just vote for that person over there because I like what they say. Or there's other people that don't buy it, and they use their vote to vote against that thing that they don't like, or whatever the case may be. But I don't want a person that is going to say to me, I know how to fix all your problems. And that's by me going in there and telling you how to live your life. So to bring that back to what I started with, A libertarian stance on gay marriage, LGBTQ rights, and people's choices to alter their bodies, dress, or personalities it's none of my business. And at this point, I have to rake over the coals conservative Christians, Republicans, anybody else that fits that category, the people that are actual bigots, or maybe they're not even bigots, but like their religion tells them that gay marriage or same sex and all that is a sin, and therefore they're against it, and therefore they believe that it should be illegal because for some reason people think that their own personal beliefs are the things that should be made into law. It's none of my business. It's none of your business. What any of those people do with their lives, their choices. Even I used to have some people that were associates that I mistakenly called friends, that I had to argue with them when the Supreme Court said that the states can't have laws against gay marriage. And their stance was that the Supreme Court, quote unquote, found a new right in the Constitution to be able to have same-sex marriage. No, that right was always there. In the absence of a law or something else prohibiting it. Okay, so what the Supreme Court did in that case was they removed the ability of states to restrict people from getting married just because they were of the same sex. And there's a relevant cross point to that in the abortion case that just came before the Supreme Court not too long ago, where they basically said, yeah, there's nothing in the Constitution that gives the federal government the right to enforce the restrictions. Take care, Hero. Have a great one, and you can always catch the VOD later. But the bottom line is, why are you telling people what to do with themselves, with their lives, with their choices? The next time I do this before the politics show, I wanted to actually, ever since the Supreme Court took up that case on abortion, I wanted to do a show on that, because I think there's, like so many of these topics that I'm going to be choosing for this show, I think there's a lot of things that people just have not considered, and they should. But the bottom line is, if I don't have the right to tell you how to live your life, why should I be able to elect somebody to a position of power in the government who then tells you how to live your life? Unless you are committing crimes where you actually are hurting other people, and you'd be extremely hard pressed to try to convince me that two gay men or two gay women or any combination thereof getting married is somehow harming somebody else. Where is the victim in that so-called crime? So for me to try to elect somebody to a position of power in civil government because my religion says that homosexuality is a sin and therefore I want it to be illegal, and most certainly those people should not be allowed to get married because marriage is an institution that's sacred to God and he said it's between one man and... No, fuck off. You don't get to tell other people how to live their lives. And that's really the broad point to everything I'm discussing tonight is, If you feel that you have the right to do that, then you will be holding a power over other people that you should not be holding. You will be exercising what we libertarians lovingly call as tyranny. You are being a tyrannical person by telling people how to live their lives. And that's why I live my life according to the libertarian philosophy to the best of my ability, because I don't want to be somebody who commits and perpetuates tyranny. I don't want to be the person who says, oh, you over there, I think I know what's best for you. I'm going to tell you what to do through my government agent because I think it's going to make the world a better place, or whatever justification I come up with. And I end up hurting you in one way or another, even if it's violating your right to choose what is best for you. So, under no circumstances do I see any way that a law against gay marriage or a law against a sex change operation or anything like that is a good thing. And therefore, I would never vote for any of that. I would vote to repeal that because, in my mind, freedom is more important. Your freedom to choose is more important. This is, though, where there is a big problem with people who sometimes get political. On the flip side of that, you don't, as a person who is maybe part of that group, the LGBTQ community, you don't then get to elect a person to government to tell other people you have to use a person's preferred pronouns, or you must respect this person in the way that they demand to be respected in the workplace or in the school or any of that stuff. You don't get to tell us how to behave either. You don't get to tell the conservative Christians, sorry, you can't practice your religion and believe what you believe. You don't get to do that because that is in turn telling them how to live their lives. I always had an issue with censorship on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and you name it, where you'd have somebody, let's say, some inbred, redneck, dumb motherfucker who is part of the KKK or just, in general believes that black people are inferior to white people. He's a white supremacist. And if you censor that person simply because they're espousing that idea, because they want to talk and say what they are, what they believe and what they think everybody else should believe, then you have essentially silenced dissent. Now, most people are going to look at that racist and they're going to say, "Yeah, no, sorry, your words are not worth our time." Most people are going to do that. But if you step on a person's right to free speech in that perspective, you might then step on a person's right to free speech in another perspective. It goes back and forth, and to me, there's a beautiful balance to be had by not pushing your will on others in any scenario, in any form. So now I want to step away a little bit from that, and I want to talk a little bit about obsessive compulsive disorder. You might be maybe a little. If you're not familiar with obsessive compulsive disorder, you might be a little more familiar with the movie As Good as It Gets with Jack Nicholson and I think Helen Hunt. And in that movie, Jack Nicholson plays a character who uh, has obsessive compulsive disorder, and uh, the point of OCD is that if you have it, you are compelled by your own mind to do things that otherwise you wouldn't normally do. So a great example of how OCD was portrayed in that movie, As Good as It Gets, is Jack Nicholson takes a bar of soap that is new, wrapped. It's fresh out of the box and wrapped in paper. He unwraps it. He washes his hands with this brand new bar of soap, and then immediately throws it in the trash. And he's washed his hands now with this bar of soap, but the reason he throws it out is because in his mind it has been tainted now. So instead of taking the brand new bar of soap and leaving it on his sink to wash his hands with it again until the bar of soap is completely used up, he feels that washing his hands with a tainted bar of soap that has been used before is not going to get his hands clean enough to be satisfactory. So the mind of a person with OCD is that you must do things that are often repetitious in order to produce that satisfactory result. And even then, sometimes it's not satisfactory. So here's how that relates to this whole discussion and me in particular. I have a form of obsessive compulsive disorder. Some of you may have it as well. Mine is actually fairly mild compared to how drastic it can be. But my OCD presents in a couple of different particular ways. The first thing is when I'm at work, everything has to be in its specific place. Everything has to be in order. Everything has to have its own place. And if it's out of place or out of order or anything like that, it I don't want to say disrupts me, but it certainly doesn't feel good. I feel a little bit of an anxiety over that. Um, when I'm at home, I use liquid soap now, but when I used bar soap, I could use the bar of soap again, but I would want to cleanse the bar of soap of any bubbles so that there wasn't like dried bubbles and ridges over the bar of soap when I went to go use it the next time. Um, just in general, wanting to have things laid out, have things prepared, wanting to find the best outcome. Even as far as like the things that I eat, I choose in a very specific manner the way in which I eat things and how what order I eat them in, and depending on a whole bunch of different factors. In other words, the OCD that I have is relevant to things in my mind that are necessary in order to produce a good, if not the best outcome. And unfortunately, that's something that I have to live with, but there is most definitely a silver lining to that cloud. Sometimes it bogs me down crazy fierce to the point where I'm sitting there on my bed, psyching myself up to leave for the day because I'm worrying about this or that, or can't get my mind off of this or that. or I can't come up with a solution to a problem, that bothers me. I'm a very solutions-oriented person. But the silver lining to the OCD is that it forces me to attempt to examine something from as many angles as possible. Literally, OCD forces me to be as objective as possible, to try to analyze something, and I'm often overthinking, overanalyzing, especially compared to people that don't have OCD. It forces me to determine whether or not the thing that I believe, the thing that I want to use as a solution, is real or not, is true or not. Because I don't want to live a lie. I don't want to try to perpetuate some falsehood in order to harm somebody, or take advantage of them, or even get a better result for myself if I don't have to. I want to live a truthful and honest life. And the OCD compels me to examine every situation from as many angles as possible. Now, I'm not always successful with that. In fact, there's many times where I am not even close to being successful with trying to be objective. There are many times when I have failed completely in that, and it usually takes somebody else pointing it out to me. Now, whether I accept that because of my pride is a whole different discussion, but the fact of the matter is that that is the essence of criticism, and in particular constructive criticism, is when you're supposed to be objective about something and you aren't, or you simply forget or don't consider one of the perspectives that you should have, and somebody points it out to you and you go, oh, yeah, you know what, you're right. I forgot that. Thank you for pointing that out to me, because it is something that is necessary for me to consider. The biggest thing that I've seen in politics is that everybody, we talked about a little bit of this in Isnib's chat this morning, or this afternoon. The biggest thing I see in politics is that nobody, or virtually nobody, too few people, are willing to criticize their own beliefs. And I've used this particular phrase in the past, and I'll use it again, to make sure that you are on the side of truth, not just believing that your beliefs are correct. See, truth and the facts don't give a shit about your feelings. They are there, and you either accept reality as it is, or you come up with a whole bunch of different ways to alter reality so it tastes better. If you truly want to be honest with yourself, you have to make sure, constantly criticize what you believe in to make sure that you're on the side of truth, instead of just believing that what you believe is correct, because that's the only way that you'll find truth, is being honest with yourself, not lying to yourself about what you believe and what you want to believe simply because it's easier or less painful, or you don't have to deal with the repercussions or the consequences. Those are all excuses. And so many times I see people, especially in the political arena, that they just absolutely refuse to criticize their own beliefs. I'm not trying to toot my own horn here. I'm just saying that OCD compels me to constantly criticize my own beliefs and make sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing because I want to do what's right. I want to be a good person. I want to do my best. I want to be successful. I want to take what has been given to me by life and turn it into something positive and be the good person who at the end of their life is going to look back on what they did and be proud of it. Not just worrying about what I'm going to do to increase my wealth or my power or my position. I want to be a good person. Do you want to be a good person? Okay, that is what is required. You have to constantly criticize yourself. You, the person who wants to be a good person, has to take on this thing that was given to my mind without my choice involved. Take that on your person and constantly criticize everything that you do to do your best and be sure that you are becoming a good person and taking the actions of a good person. So let me take that back now to just very briefly, like I'm not going to spend more than 2 minutes on this. Trump or Clinton or Trump and Biden. Do you see in either of those people, any of those three people, a person who constantly criticizes themselves to be on the side of truth? Because I don't. I don't see anybody that runs for major political office and has any supposed chance of winning showing that kind of humility. In fact, the overwhelming majority of people that run for political office, the overwhelming majority of people that run government and have for a century, lack humility. Now, potentially that is the fault of the people who simply go out there and they don't know what the hell they want to do with their government, so they just vote for the person that looks and talks the best. That was Obama back in 2008. Obama was very charismatic, of an extremely disciplined and well-spoken person. His cadence, the way he spoke, the way he presented himself, the way he stood, the way he looked at people, all screamed that he was a person of the people, a person who was going to be able to go into government and fix it. Now, on the flip side, you've got Trump, who is braggadocious. He is extremely egotistical. I think he gained a little bit of humility in later years, but you still see him doing things that prove he is an egotistical person. And yet, the Republicans love him. Well, most of the Republicans, not everybody. The conservative Christians, all of the Trump supporters in the country have essentially said to themselves, I don't care if he's brash, rude, all of the multiple things that he's said that are just absolutely horrible, grab him by the pussy, whatever else. Don't care. We're going to overlook that. And we're going to put him in the office anyway. So, that would be my suggestion on that aspect of it, is that if you really want to see a difference, I mean, that also is part of the problem. You have to want to see difference in politics. whether or not you vote or not, you have to, maybe support people that are actually going to show humility and go in there with an open and honest heart and want to do what's right, not just what's expedient, what makes the most money, what gives them the most power. But at this point in my life, I also I also support people that don't want to vote. I got to a point where I just don't want to vote anymore. And if that's your choice, so be it. That's the libertarian stance in me again. If you do not want to utilize your right to vote to try to fix this bullshit that we're in, that's your choice, and I respect that. It's up to you. Do whatever you want. It's none of my business. Now, let me transition that into humility in the context of equality versus superiority. So we briefly touched on white supremacy, which is essentially believing that people that are white are superior human beings to those of different skin colors, which is the most idiotic thing I've ever heard of. There's absolutely zero rational basis for that. We all bleed red, to use a common idiom in regard to that. But I can only imagine that the people that actually believe in white supremacy have been fed a line of bullshit from somebody somewhere in their past that led them to believe this thing that clearly is not true. All human beings are equal. And that is something that is a shared political value for almost every single person, at least in the United States. When the United States overthrew the rule of England here, they were overthrowing the caste system that England was perpetuating in its own place, and still does. Like, you've got the royals in the UK. Those people are literally, by definition, supposed to be more important than other people. That's what a king is. That's what, these rich motherfuckers that raise themselves up into positions of power and glory and honor and blah, 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 blah. They believe themselves to be superior human beings. But at least there was a time in America, and there's still a lot of people here that believe that every human being, no matter where they are or what they do, is equal in the eyes of the law. So that means government can't treat people differently based off of things that have nothing to do with how they should be treated. Like, I mean, if we briefly go back to the restrictive gay marriage laws that states had, if the government, according to the 14th Amendment, is supposed to be treating everybody equal, that was the 14th Amendment came from the Civil War, came from the concept that there was people in this country that believed black people should be treated as lesser beings, and they created the 14th Amendment after the Civil War was over to say, no, you can't do that. It's not right. You have to treat everyone equally, no matter what kind of skin color they have, or what kind of, in later years adding to it, what kind of sexuality they have, or anything like that. It doesn't matter how much money a person has. It doesn't matter if they came from a supposed noble family. Nothing. The lowest of us is equal to the highest of us. Now that is a total different concept from behavior. When you've got people that just completely act like assholes, and you've got people that are trying to do what's right, people that are trying to be good people and live according to the law, live according to maybe that libertarian stance where you don't try to interfere with other people's lives. There are most definitely superior people in behavior. But as far as the law is concerned, superficial things like your skin color, your sexuality, the way you dress, where you come from, who your family is, who your friends are, none of that should matter. That is a humble attitude. None of that should matter. It's none of my business. I'm not going to take my business and turn away potential customers because of something superficial like that. That had to be codified into law that you cannot discriminate on the basis of sex, race, religion, any of that stuff, because too many people in this country decided it was still a good thing to do that. And there's still all these people in this country. Again, I'm looking at you, conservative Christians, that think it's okay to discriminate against that. What possible business is it of yours whether or not two gay people get married? Have you ever considered in your life that the humble attitude, the humility that Jesus taught his people was important enough for you to not take your perspective and try to build it into law and lord it over other people? I mean, we could spend quite a time on this, but if the Jesus said on the sermon in the Sermon on the Mount, love the sinner but hate the sin. Okay, that doesn't mean that you get to build into law your Christian value that says gay people can't marry because you want our civil law to match God's law. And what about other religions? Is Christianity the only religion in this country? And if the answer is no, and it is no, then what makes you possibly believe that your Christian values, according to your religion, are the things that need to make up how the law here in this land of America is built? What possible right of it is of yours is it to dictate to others that they must live by your Christian values? That's not humility. That is the opposite of humility. That's pompousness. That is completely against that libertarian ideal that I uphold to the best of my ability of not telling other people how to live their lives because it's none of my business. On the flip side, people that do not have a religion do not get to tell people who are religious how to practice their religion, how to worship their God, how to live their life according to their religious values. There are limitations to that, though. Like, if your religion tells you to go blow up something to bring glory to your God, that's a problem, and we're not going to allow you to live your religion like that. But I see it from both sides. I see the conservative Christians trying to tell the gays and everybody else how to live their life because they think that Christian principles are more important than anything else. And I also see people trying to destroy religions, saying, sorry, you can't practice your faith in this public place here because it's disturbing to us, or we think conservative Christians have had too much of an impact on the history of this country, blah blah blah. No, sorry, it's none of your business. So that actually points to number 6 pretty well. These divisions that we've built among ourselves. I mean, the basic division of Republican versus Democrat or conservative versus liberal probably encompasses the overwhelming majority of those divisions, but it could be anything from age, sex, whatever. How many, I don't know, you personally, if you're listening to this, how many times you've heard it. I've heard quite a few black people that have voiced their opinion that white people are evil and they need to lock white people up because we have perpetuated racism and bigotry in this country, and we keep black people enslaved in other ways. I don't know about you, but I haven't owned slaves any time in the past that I can remember. So don't tell me that I'm part of the problem simply because I'm white. Just like I'm not going to tell you that you're part of the problem because you're black. That also, I think, would easily fall into the libertarian stance. It's none of my business. I'm not going to try to keep you down because I think your color matters. Don't try to keep me down. All right, so I'm going to start to wrap this up fairly soon here. But I do want to hit a couple more points. Gaslighting is important to me, or an important point to me, because I see quite a few people out there that will tell you that what you do know is not what is actually the case. Just as important as it is for you to constantly criticize your own beliefs to ensure that you are on the side of truth, it is also equally important to not let people tell you that what you know to be truth is not actually the truth for political agenda, or because they want something completely different than you do, so they're going to push for that by telling you you're insane. Now, gaslighting is a thing that is far more prevalent in personal relationships. But I can remember a time not so long ago that I was told by a government entity that if I was just inflating my tires and regularly changing my oil, that I wouldn't have such a problem with the high gas prices. To be told by the government that what I know is not true, or what I know is not right, is actually right. That is gaslighting. And it's disgusting. It's the next step above telling somebody what to do with their life. It's telling them that what they want to do with their life is the wrong thing and therefore they need to stop. Who the hell are you to try and convince me that the choices that I make and the ones that I want to form my life with, and I stand by my decisions, Who the hell are you to tell me that those decisions are wrong? Who the hell are you to try to convince me that I'm crazy because I believe in something that I know to be the truth? And I know it to be the truth because I have done everything possible to criticize myself and find out what the truth is. If you've got an argument that what I believe is not really true, then constructively criticize me. Tell me where I'm wrong. Point something out to me and say, hey, have you considered this? Don't tell me that I'm just wrong outright. Sorry, you don't know what the fuck you're doing. Shut up, sit down. No. And that takes me back to the first thing that I initially talked about, which was this incident that happened about 6 months ago, 4, 5, 6 months ago. I can't remember exactly. Where somebody was constantly correcting me and telling me, you're saying this wrong. You need to say it this way. And if you continue to say it the wrong way, you're a bigot. To which I finally, after a while, stood up and said, no, I'm not a bigot. I'm one of the most open-minded people you will ever meet. And maybe I even tried to explain my libertarian stance on life, and that wasn't good enough. So they made me an enemy. And I said, okay, fine. If I'm your enemy, then you don't get to talk to me anymore. Don't make people your enemy because they don't act the way that you want them to act. That's my advice on that. And it's also part of that libertarian stance. If I don't get to tell you how to live your life, I also shouldn't look down on you because you have made choices different from the choices that I have made. The only people that I determine are not worth my time and I need to remove from my life because they are toxic or they have a negative impact on me are the people that have taken those personal choices and actually negatively affected me in one way or another. But if it hasn't negatively affected me, how could I possibly judge you for your own personal choices that only affect you? All right. So the last thing I want to hit on is perspective, and it's really interesting to me the fact that I could probably have this scripture, Matthew 7:5, listed on the show. And there's going to be somebody at some point who's going to take a look at that and go, oh my God, he's pushing religion. The only thing that I've found is that there is a lot of good advice in the Bible. I am not a religious person. I have huge issues with who God is and how he is presented in the Bible. I don't belong to any specific religion. I don't belong to atheism either. I don't know if there is God or if there isn't God. All I know is that if God exists as he is presented in the Bible, I've got some severe moral issues with who that entity is. But that doesn't negate the fact that there is outstanding advice in the Bible on how to live your life. Some of it isn't, but the overwhelming amount of things that are given as examples of how to do this or that in your life in the Bible is fantastic. Hello, Tinkerer. Glad you're here. So Matthew 7:5. You have probably heard this in one form or another, even if you're not religious. You hypocrite, first remove the beam out of your own eye, and then you can see clearly to remove the speck out of your brother's eye. Now this is Jesus speaking in Matthew 7:5. That's in the Sermon on the Mount. And what he was trying to teach people in that moment is that it is extremely easy to sit there and look at somebody else and criticize and say, you are doing this wrong. Here's how you fix that. The way that he specifically worded that, or rather the phrasing of how that scripture goes, he's saying, first of all, you're a hypocrite for believing that you should be in a position to judge others and criticize others and say to them, this is this thing that you're doing over here is wrong. You're a hypocrite for doing that. But more than that, you probably have some glaring, huge issues with yourself that to ignore those huge glaring issues that you have and instead point out this insignificant issue that this other person has is so monumentally unbalanced. The only way that you should be able to point out the flaws in other people, and the only way that you should be able to criticize other people in that regard, is by fixing your own issues first. And I was reminded of several years ago a way that kind of plays into real life when you talk about a judge. We elect judges to sit on in courts and judge other human beings and their relationships and their situations. So let's say I elect a judge and they sit there and they basically make bad decisions as a judge. And let's say they have a pedophile who, is involved with some nasty business. And instead of giving them, a pretty strict sentence in an attempt to make the justice system pay for, make that person pay for their crime, they let them off really easy. You'll be in prison for 3 months and then you're gone. A judge is supposed to be a person who is on a good foundation of being able to judge other people. And I want to relate a little bit of a story about the Cleveland area here. In the past, we had 3 county commissioners. You might have heard the name Jimmy DeMora before. Jimmy DeMora was one of our 3 county commissioners, and he went to prison. He went to prison because there was so many corrupt things happening in Cuyahoga County and the Cleveland area here that the FBI came in, raided City Hall, raided the Justice Center, and Jimmy DeMora and several other people were arrested. One of those people was a judge named Bridget McCafferty. Bridget McCafferty had her judge's chambers raided by the FBI during that whole incident. And she later was arrested and charged with, I can't remember specifically, some kind of crime relating to the whole thing, corruption scandal, blah, blah, blah. Now, this was back, I think, in 2012-ish. So we're talking about 10 years almost now. Bridget McCafferty had a very popular name, and she had been a judge in Cuyahoga County for a long time. When the FBI raided her chambers, they were looking for evidence, and they found it, and they charged her, and she was convicted. But before all of the charges happened, you have to understand the FBI usually does not actually do raids unless they're fairly certain that they're going to find what they're looking for. And before she was actually charged with a crime, she was listed on the documentation for everything that the FBI did as public official number 4. Because they weren't allowed to actually disclose at that point who was involved and who they were charging and all of that until everything was said and done. Her name was leaked to the press. And they did all sorts of things trying to find out what she did and what she was involved in and all of that. They interviewed her. Somebody asked for an interview and she gave it to them. It might have been our local newspaper. And they asked her the question of what this investigation meant to her being a judge. And she had the audacity at that point to say that going through this investigation was going to make her a better judge. She was actually up for re-election at that time. And her opponent was a guy named Mike Astrub. And everywhere that Mike Astrub was going to talk about this particular race in which he was running against Bridget McCafferty and was trying to win this election that was coming up, he was simply telling people what the FBI had done in raiding her chambers and that she was listed in the documentation as a public official number 4 and all of this stuff. Thankfully, Bridget McCafferty was not reelected. But she was still on the ballot. And 125,000 people in Cuyahoga County voted for Bridget McCafferty after she was charged with a crime. And I can't help but wonder, okay, so maybe these people are just not informed, or maybe they don't care that she was charged with a crime. I have to wonder if the entire purpose of a judge is supposed to be somebody that's on a solid foundation of their own personal life, their own fortitude, their own personal belief system, to be able to sit there and judge others objectively. How can anybody think that a judge that's being charged with a corruption crime is going to continue to make a good judge? It doesn't make sense. Thankfully, she was not reelected, and they swept her out with the rest of the trash. But, of course, there's probably more trash in there that nobody really cares or sees about now. Why did it take the FBI raiding the county offices to arrest 25 people that were involved in corruption? Why did it get that bad before they were called in? Well, because then it was big fish stuff. Why didn't the people care about the corruption and took it upon themselves to ensure that the people they are electing are not corrupt? If you want to put somebody in a position of power in government over you, why wouldn't that be a person that you truly trust? And why wouldn't it be a person that you wouldn't want telling you how to live your life? Is it okay if the person that you elect is telling other people how to live their lives according to your standards? Does that really work in society? Just electing people to tell other people how to live their life? Is that creating utopia? Is that improving the lives of all the people? These are questions that you need to ask yourself before you take a stance on the major issues that deal with government. I said previously I wanted to do a show on abortion, and I've kind of been chomping at the bit to do that show. I think I'm going to be doing it next month now in mid-February. But I decided after this last incident that happened 4, 5, 6 months ago that I needed to do this first. This had to be the second episode, me describing to you what libertarianism is and what it means, because it literally addresses every single issue that we're going to discuss on this show. It literally sets a standard for how people are to live their lives by respecting others and how they want to live their lives. And unfortunately, in my mind, well, no, I don't want to say that. That's not accurate at all. Much to my dismay, many people are not going to adopt that stance. They're not going to adopt that principle in their life, that it is not better to tell people how to live their lives. I don't know what is best for you, therefore I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. And instead, they're going to be caught up in this person versus that person because one's a Republican and one's a Democrat, or however they divide themselves up. Or they're going to be caught up in the power struggle, the popularity, or we just want our side to win. So much to my dismay, there are too few people in this country that would adopt that stance, that they don't know what is best for other people, and therefore they shouldn't tell them how to live their lives. I can only do it for myself. I can maybe only ask you to do it. It's none of my business. It's none of your business. So don't tell other people how to live their lives, because that's a true principle in my mind of what constitutes a good person. All right, so I'm going to hit on my last point here, which is something that happened about 2 weeks ago in a forum that I don't want to reveal for a couple of different reasons. But let's just say I was in a social media type platform, and I was in a conversation after a while with about 250 different people. The way this happened was a person on that platform posted a news link to this article, and I'm going to put it in the chat here. The headline reads, "Man killed his daughter's boyfriend for selling her into sex trafficking ring, police say." This happened in Spokane, Washington. I'm just going to read some of it here. A Washington state father killed his daughter's 19-year-old boyfriend for selling her into a sex trafficking ring, police said. The boyfriend's remains were discovered in the trunk of an abandoned car last month, police said. Investigators believe the victim was killed in November of 2020. The girl's father was charged with first-degree murder and is being held on a $1 million bond. Attorney information was not listed. Police said this man learned in October of 2020 that his juvenile daughter, underage daughter, had been sex trafficked in the Seattle area and obtained information that her boyfriend was responsible. He was able to supposedly rescue his daughter and get her back to Spokane that same month. When the father learned that his daughter's boyfriend was going to be at a location in blah blah blah, he drove there and waited for the 19-year-old boyfriend to arrive. During that encounter, he abducted the victim, tying him up and placing him in the trunk of a vehicle. He subsequently assaulted the victim by hitting him in the head with a cinder block and then stabbed him repeatedly, causing his death. After the homicide, he drove the vehicle to a remote area in North Spokane County and abandoned the car with the body still inside. Now, that article was shared by this person who is a conservative talking head with the message, "I hope he gets off easy." And this is primarily, it seems to me, if I'm trying to be objective about the situation, primarily seems like a view that is shared by a lot of conservative, not only conservatives, there's liberals too, but conservative Christians primarily dads that are manly dads. And they hold this opinion that the only good pedophile, the only good sex trafficker is a dead one. And they would not hesitate to go, if that had been their daughter, to do exactly the same thing as this man did and go and kill this person. Now, the message that I put there that earned me an unbelievable amount of hate from these people was that we should not be supporting vigilantism. And that was it. That was the only thing I said. Don't support vigilantism. Don't support this father going out there and getting his own justice by killing this guy for the supposed crime of sex trafficking his daughter. I was met with such an unbelievable amount of hate from that I was taken aback. These same people, see, because I have a history with people that are conservative Republicans. I used to be kind of involved, not necessarily on the Republican side, but in politics as an activist, and a lot of the people that I dealt with were conservative Republicans. And the thing that they said, one of the things that was most important to them was the rule of law. And I was confronted with all of these people that were, for the most part, on that side, or at least appeared to be, telling me that they didn't give two shits about the rule of law because the justice system is so fucked up that this is the only way that justice could have been obtained. was for the father to go and murder this guy. And I can see that. I totally agree. The justice system is completely fucked up. There is no justice in the justice system. There's just a government that tries to extract a whole bunch of money from poor people for committing crimes that are essentially stupid bullshit and shouldn't be crimes in the first place. Like, minor speeding, parking when you're not paying why in the world should I pay $100 ticket for parking in the wrong place? Or, not having the proper licensing or this and that, stupid bullshit. And the real criminals, the people that commit serious crimes and harm others. I'm not talking about not wearing my seatbelt. I shouldn't have to pay $100 ticket for not wearing my seatbelt because there's no victim to that supposed crime. I'm talking about you actually go out and assault or murder somebody. You actually go out and kidnap and sex traffic a person. You actually go out and perpetuate a gang war. The real criminals, the people that don't give a shit about anybody else except for themselves, and they commit crimes to that effect. It seems like the justice system lets those people go with a smack on the wrist and says, okay, you've done your time, and then they go back out and do it again. So I can totally see that. People that are so frustrated with the justice system that they say, fuck the rule of law, fuck that shit. This is the only way that justice can be had anymore. I saw that comment a lot. I saw 10 million people saying an eye for an eye, which doesn't even make sense because the guy didn't murder his daughter, and yet he murdered him. So that's not eye for an eye. Not to mention the incivility of what an eye for an eye represents. The way that eye for an eye was actually put into practice is that you steal something, they chop off your hand. That'll teach you not to steal anything. The crime never matched the sentence under eye for an eye. That's why it was done away with. And our justice system doesn't stand for that. So I could see all of those things. But what I couldn't see was people who were claiming that I supported sex traffickers, that I supported pedophiles, that I supported the scum of the earth getting away with this shit simply because I said, don't support vigilantism. So I took it a step further. I said, I believe every human being, no matter who they are or what potential crimes they have committed, should have and does have, according to our law, the right to a trial, the right to face their accuser, the right to have due process of the law, to investigate and then face a judge duly elected by the people before a sentence is carried out. They have a right to a jury trial, not just a trial, a jury trial, to be judged by a panel of your peers. These are all rights that are listed in the Bill of Rights and the Constitution and have been for a long time. And the very people that said this is important, the government not trample on our rights, the government not try to change or abridge our rights. You have to have somebody to protect your rights. These are the same people that said to me, fuck that, he had no rights. He got what he deserved, which may be true, but it was wholly appropriate and accurate for that father to summarily execute this man. The problem with that is about a week after that news article came out, a second news article came out, and I'll share that as well. Man who allegedly killed daughter's boyfriend is no hero, grieving family says. It has the makings of a Hollywood thriller. A determined dad rescues his teenage daughter from an alleged Seattle sex trafficking ring and then takes brutal and deadly revenge on the boyfriend who he claims sold her into bondage. That's what police said this man did. He is charged with first-degree murder and the death of 19-year-old blah, blah, blah. It was something that a lot of men say they would do for their daughter. This man's fiancée told the press. But the murdered person's parents told NBC News that to save himself from a long prison sentence, the father and his family are demonizing a developmentally disabled young man who was born with autism and cerebral palsy and who has no ties to sex traffickers. He was a disabled kid. He didn't have the capability to sex traffic anybody. The murdered person's mother said they had been advised by their lawyer and the police not to speak publicly about the investigation, but she said that her son and the teenage girl had been friends for years and that it was upsetting to find out the gory details of her son's death via the news. We didn't get to tell our side of the story because there is so much more out there about all of this that needs to come out. We spent a year searching for him and hoping he would return. Claims by his confessed killer have been very hurtful and only added to our family's grief. The word alleged means of an incident without proof. It has already been reported. Both the FBI and Washington State Patrol said there is no sex trafficking investigation into the victim. His name was on our missing persons listing at some point, but that does not equate to an investigation. An investigation of that type would likely be conducted by local authorities. We have had no investigation of him related to sex trafficking, the Washington State Police said. While Sorensen, the guy who was murdered, his name is Sorensen, does appear to have a police record, it's not for sex trafficking. In July of 2020, he pleaded not guilty to charges of fourth-degree assault, marijuana possession, and intent to sell marijuana that were logged against him by the Spokane County Sheriff's Office. In April 2019, available records show a woman requested a temporary order of protection against Sorensen, but apparently the request was denied after a court hearing. The daughter claims the father claims was sex trafficked by the murdered, now lives in California. NBC News is not identifying her. This father did the unthinkable for some of us, to save his little girl from an unspeakable life that causes long-term scars and years of emotional damage. Many are calling him a hero. There was something else in here, if I can find it. It wasn't in this article, but I had seen somewhere else that there was then evidence that this father was on meth at the time that he murdered the guy. I don't know how true that is, or what the actual truth of it is. But my point is this. When it comes to a situation like that, the accurate and proper thing to do, even if you don't believe that the justice system is going to produce justice, is to bring charges against the person, mount your evidence, and in their trial present that evidence, and then let the jury decide whether or not the evidence actually means they are guilty of that crime. Now, the reason we do it that way should be clear, but apparently it's not. Apparently all of these people that are saying, I would have done the same thing as a father, I would have killed this human being, and I even had people saying that it was in defense, that the father was defending his daughter by killing the guy. No. I'm sorry, I'm not going to buy that line of bullshit. He took revenge. He served out his own brand of justice by taking a vengeful act against this person who he believed committed a crime against his daughter and himself. That wasn't defense. Defense is stopping somebody in the moment. Defense is protecting yourself, not going after somebody and meting out justice. So to all of the people that said to me that the father was just defending his daughter, no, I'm sorry, that's not the right word at all. And you can't use that to excuse his actions. But the point is, this man had a right to a trial, the same as any of us have a right to a trial. He had a right to the due process of the law, for the law to investigate and come to a conclusion and then present evidence for or against this person in relation to those charges. This man that was murdered had rights, that the father said, fuck all of that shit, I'm just choosing to take your life now. And I was attacked for standing up and saying this person has rights, even if he committed the most heinous crime that he could have possibly committed, he still has rights. And that meant I supported sex trafficking. That meant I supported pedophiles. Hell, it probably meant I was a sex trafficker and a pedophile myself. That's what that meant, apparently. And it pissed me off, something fierce, because remember that whole thing about attempting to be a good person? I thought being a good person meant standing up for the human rights of all people equally. Not choosing who gets human rights and who doesn't, based off of superficial things. What if he didn't commit the crime? What if everything that this father believed about what that boyfriend did was wrong, and he murdered him based on faulty information? Maybe the worst of it was actually true, and this father was so drugged out that he didn't even know what reality was, and he went and murdered this person based on false information because he couldn't even tell the difference between what was real and what was false. It's easy to say, yeah, I'm a parent, I would have done what he did in that moment, and I would have gone and murdered this kid for what he did. But the reason the people have a right to a trial is to protect the innocent from false allegations. or from a government that's just trying to punish people for thinking wrong. The reason we have a right to a trial is so that there is not mob justice, so that people don't take the law into their own hands and make the mistake of punishing an innocent person. They don't take it upon themselves and make the very human mistake of punishing an innocent person. If you believe that humans make mistakes, which should be a universal thing, then the protection of the innocent that it is presented in this concept that every single person has a right to a trial, that every single person has a right to due process of the law, to face their accusal, to be judged by a jury of their peers, all of these things, even the right to have a defense, to mount their own defense. Did this kid have a chance to defend himself against the allegation that was made that he was sex trafficking his girlfriend, and therefore the father had to summarily execute her? The epitome of ego is believing that you know better. It is taking power that is not yours to take and forcing other people to do what you think is best, what is right. In this last case, the epitome of ego was this father forcing this young man to give up his life in order to serve justice. That should only be done in the most extreme of cases. Giving up your life to serve justice? And who should decide that? Some random guy who was unable to control his anger and went into a literal murderous rage, beating his victim over the head with a cinder block and stabbing him multiple times before dumping his body in the trunk of a car. That's justice? No. I'm sorry. I don't want to live in that world where that is justice. Because even if that guy did it, that's not justice. That's not how a civil society does it. That's not how people who respect other people's rights do it. That literally, and I don't use that term lightly here, that literally is the opposite of uncivilized. It is animalistic. It is allowing yourself to be taken over by your emotions. It's the complete opposite of civilized. The epitome of ego is believing that you know so much that it is right and proper for you to tell other people how to live their life. And it's the complete opposite of libertarianism. And I don't want to live my life that way. I don't want to pretend that that is the best way to live and the best way to interact with all of the other people that I have to interact with. I don't think I could ever believe that. So, this is the reason why I named this show The Epitome of Ego. Because all of these things that I have talked about in the last 2 hours have been about, do you have an ego? Do you think you're superior to other people? Even as simple as you believe that your way of living is the best way of living and therefore you want everybody else to do that. Do you take that extra step and then you force people in whatever way you decide is best to live that life? That is the epitome of ego. And it's the complete opposite of everything that I aspire to be. It is the complete opposite of everything that I try my best to live my life according to, those principles. And in my mind, it's also the complete opposite of what makes a person a good person. So, that's it. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Thank you for listening to my rants. I don't know if this is interesting to you, but like so many of the other things that I do on Twitch, it's for my own personal enjoyment. And I do enjoy this to some degree. There's many aspects of this that I like and I want to continue. That's why I came up with this show in the first place. Whether or not people are here or listen to it or want to interact or ignore it. It's none of my business what you choose to do with it. And that's fine. If I've reached nobody with the message that I've said here, that is fine. I'm okay. All right, so let's wrap this up by going over to coming attractions on the ABC channel. Sleight of Game, our sponsor this month, was going to do this last Friday for 2 years. Or no, not 2 years. 500 followers. He reached 500 followers on Twitch, and he was going to do this show where he basically has you, the fine folks that are watching the stream, help him choose 52 games to play in 2023. He had some issues with family and pets and weather and some other stuff, and he had to, postpone it. So it is now tomorrow. And that's starting at 2 p.m. Eastern. So that is tomorrow on Sleight of Games channel. Let me put in the chat one more time because I believe this is going to be the last time he is our sponsor. And he requests that you go check out shatterproof.org. This, the reason why he wanted to direct your attention to that website is because Slight's history is he had a very powerful drug addiction, and he got out of it. He got himself clean and leads a much better life than he was at that point. And it's obviously a very big problem in our society. So if this is something that is important to you and you would like to maybe try to make a difference in that aspect, just check out the website. At the very least, there's some good information there. And you might be able to, in one way or another, help somebody who is addicted to drugs make a recovery back to a more normal life. And again, check him out tomorrow at 2 p.m. Saturday, our Twin Peaks Watch Party podcast will continue. We started this past Saturday. It's going to be every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. And this week we are considering season 1, episodes 2 and 3 of the original Twin Peaks series. After watching the first episode, the pilot episode, last Saturday, am already hooked. It's kind of soap opera-ish, but the mystery that they are weaving into the storyline there is extremely fascinating, and the character development is very fascinating. And by purpose, half of the characters you hate and half of them you love. So it's very interesting. Stop on by the Conflux if you've never seen it or you're a fan of Twin Peaks. And we will be doing that every Saturday morning in the Conflux. Also in the Conflux on Sunday, our Enigma Blockbuster Cinema 2021 show returns for episode number 5, where 3 totally unqualified hooligans will be roasting The Fifth Element from 1997. Gary Oldman, Mila Jovovich, however you say her name, and Bruce Willis. One of our, and when I say our, all 3 of us, plus several people in our family and related friends, our personal favorite. This is one of the great movies that has graced our presence in the last several years. Fantastic movie. I absolutely love it in many regards. And it will be a pleasure to roast all of the insane characters, Chris Tucker, alone in this movie. So stop on by. That will be 5 p.m. Eastern on the Conflux on Sunday. Then I wanted to draw a little bit of attention to this. One of the members of our community is the Casual Gaming Guy. He is doing his 2-year streamiversary on January 17th. He's on the West Coast, so 2 p.m. Pacific Standard is when he's starting. That's 11 a.m. Eastern. So if you get a chance, check him out. He's going to be playing quite a few different games, including Jackbox, Turtles in Time, City Skylines. I just downloaded City Skylines, or I got it on Steam not too long ago. It looks interesting, kind of like a SimCity of the modern time. But yeah, check him out. He'll be celebrating his streamiversary and invites you to go. That _casual_gaming_guy on Twitch. We just call him Casual for short, but yeah, check him out. And that'll be Tuesday, January 17th. Now, later that night, unless I've received a message, I'm going to check now and see if I've received a message here. And I did not. So, Tuesday night, I had initially planned to do this show, my Ancient Airwaves, where we listen to old-time radio shows. And the one that I had selected for Tuesday is Dark Fantasy, which is a horror show that only played during late night. We're talking like 1 o'clock, after prime time. And it was because of the content of the shows that back at the time it aired in the 40s, it was considered so risque they would not allow something like that in prime time. By today's standards, it's probably not even remotely close, but yeah, it it was Tales of Terror that they put out on the radio under the title Dark Fantasy, and we're going to be listening to 3 episodes of that. However, that might change because Witch Whitney has talked to me, and we might be doing this instead. Me over on her channel, being in the booth with her as she plays at dead of night. We have not settled on a time. If she is wanting to do that on Tuesday and that works with her schedule, I'm going to cancel the Ancient Airwaves show because this, in my mind, kind of takes precedence. We've been trying to do this for quite some time, and scheduling just hasn't worked out. So if she gets back to me and she says, yes, we can do that Tuesday night instead of Ancient Airwaves, I will be over on Witch Whitney's channel approximately 6 p.m.-ish so that we could help her beat that game at dead of night, which is actually one of my favorite horror games, even though I haven't played it at all. I've just watched several other people play it, but yeah, I'm going to be giving her a hand in trying to beat that. So we'll see what happens. Check the schedule probably within a few days on the website. I'll have that listed correctly, which is going to be. And then I didn't list it here, but on Wednesday, January 18th, our DMCA Disney Doubles continues in the Conflux, and we are watching the original 101 Dalmatians and the live-action remake featuring Glenn Close from 1996. So that'll be, I think, at 5:30 p.m. And then Thursday, also in the Conflux, That's Not Real Trek continues. We are now completely out of the Kirk era, and we are starting the Picard era, which we kind of started with that last week with the movie Star Trek Nemesis from 2002, which was the last movie that was made with the TNG crew. Now we are starting into the new Star Trek that's available on Paramount Plus in the Picard era. And we will be starting with Lower Decks, which is the newer animated series that's a complete adult comedy. There's a lot of inside jokes, a lot of Easter eggs, a lot of references to Trek history, and it's a lot of fun. I've seen the first season, and it's really a great comedy show, much in the style of like Simpsons or Family Guy. So we'll be starting that this coming Thursday, January 19th. So that's pretty much it. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining me, even if it was briefly, or you're just lurking in the background, or you're watching this on the video on demand. Let's see if we got somebody to raid here. Do. Oh, excuse me. Speaking of our sponsor, Slight, since this is his the last show probably on Twitch that he will be sponsoring, let's go check him out. He's playing with Marty, his friend Marty McFly guy. Dark Pictures Anthology. Whoop. Would help if I actually did my commands properly here. There we go. All right. Once again, thank you all for joining me. I appreciate you. My voice is a little bit raw now because I've essentially been talking for 2 hours, much to the chagrin. Is that the right way to say that? Chagrin of I don't know, certain people probably. I'm not a fool. I realize this is not necessarily the best entertainment, and that there's not going to be a lot of people that are enticed to come in and listen to a guy just rant for 2 hours. The more audience participation there is, the more interactive nature there would be. I'd be doing polls and things like that. But we'll see where it goes. I might do some more of these in the future. I might not. It just depends. So thank you very much, Tinker. I appreciate you. Everybody that was here previously. Selamu, Hero. I appreciate you. We'll see you later. Don't do anything I wouldn't do because I'm not going to do that.